Jim Geraghty, my colleague at the Washington Post, columnist for the Morning Jolt at NRO. We'll be taping the editors shortly. I'll be listening to that later. Jim, I get a preview. What did you think of last night?
So I think Trump was terrible. I think it was a Fukushima level meltdown. Lost his cool, stepped into every trap. I think the Harris campaign went out and did exactly what the Harris campaign wanted to do, and yet I don't know if it's going to move the numbers that much because I think what we saw from Trump last night, as bad as it was, wasn't all that different from what we saw in the convention speech where he started rambling about the Green. She was poised, she was cool. Trump was this erupting volcano next to her. But I still don't think there's any sense that people know how she would be different from Biden. She is the status quo with a much more pleasing face. And I don't know if that gets you to 270 electoral votes. We went into it being a jump ball race, and I kind of feel like it's still a jump ball race. We'll see what happens. I'll be very surprised. I really want to see what the next round of polling numbers look like because it wouldn't shock me if she got a huge bump, but I actually really think it's going to be about the same.
All right, for anyone just tuning in, I've said it 25 times. Trump lost the battle. I think he may have won the war last night because they threw the spotlight on Springfield, Ohio, which is going to have more trucks in it than they've ever seen. And people are going to realize a town of 58,000 has 20,000 Haitian immigrants. The dog thing is a secondary story. It's 20,000 Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. That's the story.
He did
Jim,
shout, they're eating the pets. Like, you can't
yeah,
say
well,
it
that's
was a
actually,
secondary
that was
story
not a good moment.
when he puts it front and
Lose
center.
the battle.
Yeah,
Win the war. I want to ask you about four things I asked Rich that were not asked. Joe Biden is incapacitated, constitutional crisis. Hirsch Goldberg, an American citizen, was executed by terrorists 10 days ago. There are still Americans in terrorist hands, didn't come up. Iran was not mentioned, but astonishingly, the greatest threat to our way of life is China. China. The largest military buildup in history. Genocide against the Uyghurs, Hong Kong suppressed, Jimmy Lai in prison. Do you think Disney told ABC, because Disney owns ABC and they have parks and merch and all that stuff in China, not to bring up China?
Well, Hugh, they have 90 minutes. If it were up to me, not only would I have asked a question, I'd do a whole debate just on China. I'd have Jimmy Quinn of National Review, Josh Rogan of The Post, throw in Gordon Chang, one or two other, and I do a whole debate on nothing but China. I'm not disputing with you. There should have been a question on that. That said, if you add 10 minutes and you add a question about China, I don't think the conclusions change from last night. Everything you mentioned are good questions to ask. I would have put that instead of the climate change question. You do polls of people that, climate change usually comes in 9th or 10th on their list of priorities. I guess you could say for ABC it was the last question. But you go through those questions. In today's Morning Jolt, I go through the transcript and I put every single question they asked. You want to gripe that they were tougher on Trump than they were on Harris? Okay. If you're a Republican, you should be expecting this. After Candy Crowley, after George Stephanopoulos asking why do Republicans want to ban birth control, after Gwen Ifill having a book deal about Obama and moderating a debate about it, this is nothing new for Republican candidates. You can't count on the moderators to fact check the Democratic opponent. You have to be ready for them to be tougher on you. And so this is nothing new. And there's it sounds a lot very sour grapesy to me today to have all this griping about.
Oh, the Richter scale. This we're going to disagree.
Oh, no.
Rich Lowry and I just agreed. Rich and I just agreed. The worst debate in presidential debate history, and the Richter scale is exponential, not incremental. If Candy Crowley was a 7, this was a 9. And I just think that's what the average American who watched it thinks. It might have helped Harris. I think Trump missed opportunity after opportunity. He lost the debate, but it was the worst debate ever.
The first question was about, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And I don't think Harris answered it very well at all, basically pointing to the COVID and as if that was, all Trump's fault. Do you feel any responsibility for Afghanistan? She did not answer that, and then she said no Americans are in harm's way, which my colleague Mark Wright points out. The third one on all the flip-flopping, both on flip-flopping and then the private health insurance. They asked like 4 tough questions of Kamala Harris. I'm not saying that they couldn't have asked more. I'm not saying you and I wouldn't have asked tougher ones. But I'm just pointing out, there's a lot of, Trump never had a chance. And the moderators are so biased against him. He
had a chance. That's not me. Okay. He could have won. Right. He could have won the election last night. I'm just saying, I think the revulsion is not, get used to it. We're done. They're never getting another debate at a network. I think we're just done. Last word to you, Jim.
You're not the only conservative I've heard that from. Okay, so here's a question: should J.D. Vance do an interview with Tim Walz?
Yes, absolutely.
Wait, why?
They
Hugh?
agreed to
You
it.
have the same kind of. All right, but
They agreed to it. They made a
okay.
deal. Republicans stick to deals.
All right. Sorry, you're not the only conservative I've heard that from. And I don't know if I agree with it, but I also don't think that it's crazy. I also think that you have to, every Republican candidate has to say to themselves, do I gain more because of that audience? It'll be very interesting to see what the television ratings are and how many millions of people watched versus moderators that are going to be tougher on me than my opponent. And the question, fact checking is going to be tougher on me than my opponent.